or that's big. Last year here na lieutenant build a board governore build an word an tíbhaithe a príomhéide fuair na scoile sig acáirithe a gcuoine óga. In gédal sias bhháilium má bhuíchas ó cria go bhála líomh asacht an fíorcéad fáilte a d'airir sé bhrúm héin is raibh má bhain céile saibhín agus gach den a bhí ag teastar lum. Agus trés líam leis na montóiris leis an scoileoideach as an atmosfér iontacha atá le airachtáil san áit seo, agus fiú ón nóid a tháinig muid isteach. Agus is mór an príomhlid dom héin a bhein seo le bheith Acadamh Naomh Pádraig aniu chun an foirgneamh nua seo, oscailt an foirgneamh nua seo a ceiliúra go hifagúil. Is míle má bhuíchas an cria gháil leis an príomhéide finta na Dungannon a asacht an cuire heol sé dom agus is ceiliúra in áiríre mar a gúirt van days like this, agus beg tomorrows let come on. I think that it is very poetry, it's in ceiliúra seo, agus in Django is scéal fada na scoile seo a thosaigh beag na citrach a bliana hin. So is cústóchas tú in cumá den a glúnta da cálaníos na búcaile tá fós le tíocht chun dalaníos I measc a gáide le haciacht agus tróir na montóiris an achan agus a dísmóiris a bháile. Dear friends, I was Archbishop and so many distinguished guests. I was delighted last December to get the letter from Principal Fintan Donnelly inviting me on behalf of the Board of Governors to participate in the celebration of the official opening of this new school building. And Sabina and I are absolutely delighted to be here with the school community on this day of celebration when such wonderful facilities are made available to children, the adults of the future. As I have just been saying in Irish, from the very moment that we arrived, there's a very, very powerful, wonderful atmosphere in Golúdar na Scoile seo, in the community of scholarship that is this school. And I want to congratulate everybody for that. And obviously, we have been blessed. There's the Holy Spirit now. Let us move from over there to over here. Staying flexible. But as we have just had, St. Patrick's Academy has had such a rich and interesting history, reaching back almost 130 years, as we've just had, with its roots in two separate academies. One, the Buccleuch, the colony, one for boys and the other for girls. And when eventually the decision was taken for the Academy to become fully coeducational in 2003, I think it was in 2004, my predecessor, then tUachtarán, Mary McAleese, was present to mark that significant event. And may I say how much I look forward to the day when every child across Ireland could have facilities like this and in their diversity sit next to each other in their enjoyment of learning, in anticipation of the world together, sharing difference as a source of wonder, as you have just heard, at each other, and also never fearing the circumstances of the future, but looking forward to sharing together their entrance into a caring environment and a sustainable world. And when I've been reading and looking at the facilities that are available here for 1,300 students, 142 members of staff, it is remarkable to think of the distance that we have travelled in relation to the provision of education on this island. Inevitably, you would say that, well, there would say people at his age speaking, he would begin to talk about his own time in education. Well, not really, I'll spare you much of that, but let me say simply is that you had to choose, for example, between Latin and Greek and science, not unrelated to the fact that there was no science, there was no laboratory in which to do the science, and then you had to exercise other choices. But to be able to have 30 subjects being taught, to boys and girls, and to be taught with all of those represents such wonderful opportunities. I have to say as well that in my own time in moving from where I was in County Clare, that it was a great privilege and I enjoyed second level school, and I hope that you do, every one of you, in the friendships that you make and what you take from your memories when you look back to this academy. When I think, as we've heard, it was sometimes people say how far we have travelled from the last century. It was quite late that the principle of having free secondary education arrived on this island. I was in County Clare myself, where secondary education was not free in the 1950s and in the 1960s. And in the second schools, where many people did their very, very best, and parents wanted desperately, if you like, between 1955 and 1960, 250,000 people left Ireland, mostly to go to our country, our neighbours next door, and 50,000 every year. They went, many of them, without second level education, and then there would be only 4 or 5 people in the leaving class who could aspire to go on to either the training college or to go to university. I think, therefore, let us never forget those who make education possible for in that way and create opportunities for a generation that is to come, and that worked very hard at it. And St. Patrick's Academy had its own genesis. It was the result of an Act of Parliament that facilitated the establishment of secondary schools for the Catholic population. But it was not until the Northern Ireland Education Act of 1947, and then it would be later the Dublin government. The Dublin government. It was in 1966 when universal free education was announced by Donogh O'Malley. I was to benefit in another way much later on from that, because when you had in fact let all the classes into second level education, there was a major burst of pressure on the universities, and a number of us were hired as university teachers, and we came home from abroad in 1969 to take account of the new influx that had come. So therefore we were teaching people, and it was there you could get a sense that we were practicing education inclusively, we hope, where you could accept that people could have from different backgrounds, some of whose parents and grandparents would have looked at the walls of institutions rather than being there and qualified. And these are very, very significant achievements. And that's why it's such a real pleasure to be here. And on days like this, we should acknowledge, rather like Van de Man, the struggle and efforts of those enlightened women and men who helped change those laws to give everyone an opportunity to continue their education and to seek to reach their potential. And it's appropriate to remember with appreciation the generations of teachers, nuns and priests who dedicated themselves to the welfare and development of their students in St. Patrick's over the past 130 years, and who enabled the legacy that is the Academy today to come to be. And in relation to all of those traditions, the traditions, as you have heard, in relation to pluralism, they are traditions that draw from each other in their strengths, and that seek to gain from that measure rather than seeking hegemonic influence of one over another. I think as well it's appropriate to acknowledge the achievement of so many in bringing about the completion of this new school building. What strikes me, I must say, when I visit a school like this, and the view of the standard of this, are the great big broad corridors, for example, and the sense of space and light and so on. And it's a great, great privilege to be able to pay tribute to the architects and the designers and the builders who make all of this possible. I think that it's a huge undertaking, and therefore all the work that is put in by trustees and by the different boards at different levels, it's appropriate that it has been acknowledged. I think the staff of the Northern Ireland Department of Education and the governors and the directors, and very particularly something as well as that, those people who build and leave something that their name can be associated with honour into the future, Tracy Brothers and others who make it all possible. In so many ways, this achievement then, today, we're celebrating the latest in a long list of advances for St. Patrick's, and it's in keeping with the school's history, with its ethos, that education is, after all, about enabling you to grow and to reach your potential. And it includes your academic potential, obviously, but also your potential in all the other areas of life, which you will be able to draw upon and indeed build upon when you leave here. Be it in sport, music, art or drama, or the acquisition of the necessary skills in how to negotiate the trickiest part of growing up, which is interacting with other people. And it is through others, after all, that we learn to establish our versions of ourselves and our trust rather than fear in the presence of the other. I remember very, very well what it was like in many cases to come from a particular set of circumstances of poverty and the feelings of people to be alongside others with whom you might be making comparisons. Or again, I remember when I was a university teacher, those people who were coming for the first time into an institution like a university and the sense of strangeness. And it is one of the great ethical tests to be able now, when we have all of these opportunities available, to make sure that they, in fact, are enjoyed by everybody in conditions of respect and security, and also in relation to the friendships that can flourish in such a way. I think the successful completion of this new building and all those facilities it will provide will allow St. Patrick's Academy to go on fulfilling its potential in providing an environment, teamplot, in which students will be able to can achieve fulfillment and achieve all the greater fulfillment through respect for the other and care for the other and commitment to the future of both. And the building is a magnificent demonstration of such an ambition of those people who cared for your education and recognized the importance of giving young people the right conditions in which to grow and to flourish, and to realize that in the future we will be remembered for how we accepted that all of our communities are communities of the forms of community, are communities of the vulnerable. Everyone is vulnerable, perhaps, and sometimes more acute than others. But it is in the reaching out and recognition of that, and becoming educated in a sense, means being able to recognize these weaknesses so as to be able to give them strength rather than to exploit them. And this school, as I read about it and I've heard about it, and meeting all the people we met on the way in, is so clearly a school that puts care for the person at the centre of its vision and purpose. And that's a key strength. And it accounts for the success of the Academy in the day-to-day. A school will succeed when it ensures a place for everyone, when everyone feels that she or he has a place, has been able to achieve the significance of the person in it. We are unique, all of us, and we need each other, but we have different strengths and talents. And a good school is a school that values difference, allows students to find her or his own path to fulfillment and success. And you have so many objects, such a wide range, 30 subjects. And I think that the pupils at this school will have such an opportunity, and I encourage you to make full use of them all. I remember in St. Flannan's in Ennis on Wednesdays, the 2 years I was a boarder there, and then I changed my status into being something called a day boy, which put the gold medal in Greek at great risk for the school, because I was regarded as having lost some of my concentration. But there was compulsory hurling on Wednesdays, where there were only two things that mattered: winning the Hartley Cup and getting the gold medal in Greek. And they were not inclusive. I think as I listened to your teachers, I would say that as a former teacher myself, there is nothing more privileged in life than to have an opportunity to be a teacher. I enjoyed every day I did it myself. But then people listening to teachers and listening to the likes of me, it was my practice to listen to teachers, not as omniscient sources of certainty and of all wisdom, but rather to see them and appreciate their words as an introduction to curiosity and critical thinking. And the one thing I will say to the people who are behind me and all of the rest of it, people all their life will remember the teacher who communicated with them. So do take advantage of the listening and the great wisdom that your teachers will have to offer you, because we owe so much to teachers and to generations of teachers who have made a day like today possible. And what is so important as well, classroom assistants and all the other staff that may enable a school to function. And I have been impressed myself by the dedication of teachers at every level throughout the island of Ireland. Their willingness to devote so much of their own time and energies to helping students, be it on the sports field, in debating competitions, drama, musical, science projects. There's so many of them, the Gaishka Awards, the Duke of Edinburgh Awards. It demonstrates a terrific commitment to their pupils as Mullim Sheether Fad. And I do think in many cases, if the quality of the choirs on the island of Ireland has gone way up, if the quality of art, if the quality of dance and movement, and now these are floors that you won't break a leg if you dance on, I can see here, and the rest of it, because that was one of the great evolutions in Irish architectural school building, was the arrival of the sprung floor, so that at last you could realise as well that dance was as important as physical education. I think that, speaking of course of sports, there are congratulations in offer. I think that your senior girls whom I met, St. Patrick's Academy, are formidable, a formidable force to be reckoned with, and I congratulate them on getting to the final of the final, the Camogie All-Ireland final. And I have already wished the girls every success in the football semi-final. But I do want to acknowledge too the not inconsiderable achievement of the senior boys in getting to the quarter-finals of the McCrory Cup. And I know that St. Patrick's continues to provide Mickey Hart and the Tyrone teams with exceptional footballers to draw on. Now, agus cas me leob mar is oldibh tá port lánach ag an ghaeilge mar héil héin, agus is even lam go bhfuil an cultúr agus teang go gaeilge cotábhach go nascail na scoile seo. The Irish language is obviously thriving in St. Patrick's Academy, agus a bhuirim nó ishach, agus ilgeach, in such a wide and diverse and modern way, as it does in so many communities across this island. Mar buinen an teanga linar fad, because the ancient language that is the Irish language is a language that belongs to all of us on this island, and it is at its best when it is shared like that. Across communities in Ireland, the love and enthusiasm for Irish, it will enrich your lives, and I think it will encourage you to respect all other languages. And it is especially noteworthy that St. Patrick's won the prestigious Sciamachil Breda, the Ashbourne Shield, for the 14th time in 2018, Tres Líon Cogordicus. So may I then pay tribute to the long-standing partnership that we have already heard about, that you have with the Royal School, Dungannon, especially in relation to your ongoing history conference, which has been recently focusing on the decade of centenaries and our island tasks of ethical remembering over the past few years. All of this, it is so important. We are all carriers of our history. And the diverse narratives of our history in many ways makes up our day-to-day lives and echoes to some extent what happened decades ago and even centuries ago can produce echoes in today. But as we heard earlier, even how the education system in Ireland emerged and developed was highly political and in many ways was a reflection of political class, religious and even gender divisions within the broader community, and that has unfortunately largely served to separate people from each other. And that, of course, can lead to a lack of empathy, understanding, and the perpetuation of needless division and mistrust. We must remember, however, always, we are not the passive targets of history, but rather the arrows of newly fledged and aimed at a future that can remember the past, but not in a way that disables us from any future. And therefore it's so welcome that pupils from St. Patrick's Academy and the Royal School are working closely together in exploring each other's perspectives on the past, the present, and the possibilities of the future. For neighbours who know each other, and know each other, if you like, in all of their circumstances and narratives, are so much more likely to find the best ways to live together and achieve the best things of the future. Mar fhui scar céile a waran sib goléir. And while it is important for us to understand our past, in all its challenging complexities, it is even more important for us to remember that history does not need to trap us or restrict us from imagining or creating a different, better future. An saolaíocht atá ar fáil doing Iliog. The act of remembering is most valuable after all when it becomes a recalled event that is used for reflection and a way that removes, if you like, from any recalled event its capacity to deprive us of options in the present and most importantly of possibilities in the future. Across Ireland, north and south, we've been reflecting on the period between 1912 and 1922. Which was and remains a deeply contested time, with many of its shared but contestative events that have differing constructions. And much of what happened in the past is, as I have said, still forming an enormous part of our diverse collective everyday narratives. But in going forward together, the image that the people of this island hold of ourselves must have what I have called narrative hospitality. The narratives are many. They involved those who participated in the First World War, the assertion of workers' and women's rights, the Ulster Covenant, the Easter Rising, the partition of this island in the midst of civil conflict and turmoil. And they've so often been a factor of division for families and communities since then. And that legacy, here as elsewhere, needs to be recognised and addressed thoughtfully and directly. The past needs to be transacted honestly and openly, not necessarily to seek agreement in the short term, but above all to seek understanding that may make a deeper coming together in the future possible. And once we have a clear appreciation of the perspective of others and re-examine our own perspectives, we are more able to free ourselves from the shackles of any limited or distorting versions of history. Sometimes people say we should put ourselves in the shoes of the other. And I remember saying that once in a lecture somewhere, and someone said, in fact, and to walk away with them. But of course, I think that the construction of a shared future is an essential part of ensuring that the tragedies and divisions of the past are not repeated, and that all of these, you young, wonderful people facing such a wonderful life will live in a society that is more open, sustainable, diverse, caring of the environment, where there exists a hospitality and openness to understand the experience and aspirations of others. As young people today, you face many new challenges. The world that you live in is increasingly globalized and interconnected with all the wonderful potential that brings. And also you have been given a problem that is unfortunately of previous generations. A planet that has been made fragile in disrespect for the environment and in disrespect in our loss of sustainability. But the most wonderful thing is that your generation are saying, you are the generation who will care for nature. I think you will face challenges that previous generations, as I've said, have bequeathed to you. The ongoing work of the peace process too, and between these islands, it will be yours to tend. It will be for you to deliver that brighter future to which we all aspire. Biodiversity loss, all the threat to insects, threats to bird life, forms of life on this planet, and climate change. They are just two of the defining challenges of your generation, and it will require a different and radical approach, a change in mindset to that of your parents' and grandparents' generations. Sometimes that might seem overwhelming, but I look at all the energy, the croiach, the creativity, enthusiasm that young people on this island carry with them, and I am inspired. I recognize new ways of thinking that can be harnessed and brought together by new and emerging technologies that can serve us. And I can see that these exist, enabling us to help change our own communities and societies and the world for the better. You're so well placed to become active, ethical and global citizens in a sustainable world. To be the arrow, not the target. To be the arrow, not the target. Using technology and science for the betterment of the world. For after all, new technologies are double-edged swords. The internet and social media can bring into our lives images, arguments and influences that are good, but also ones that can ultimately be destructive, make us less happy, limited, less optimistic, even less hopeful. And social media too, although it can be positive in so many ways, can distort reality where the version of people's lives that they choose to present online is, of course, not the full picture of their lives as it might be. And social media too can be an instrument for inadvertent and deliberate exclusion. I always mention speaking in schools, the tragedy of where the technology is used for bullying or for the undermining of the self-esteem and confidence of any youngster. That we need to take care, have consideration for each other. We must use our energies to support and help those around us, to take the world into us not for ourselves, but for others, and recognize that they too must be able to engage with the world that resonates for them, particularly those who might be more vulnerable for one reason or another. We will all experience in our lives times of vulnerability, and it is in those times that the consideration, kindness, and assistance of those around us reveal the kind of person and society we really are. So as we celebrate our Loch Lurach, the opening of this marvellous building today, may I say again that what we're really celebrating is our hopes for each other and for the generations of students that will follow you. Agus mar tUachtarán hUigínn, Tris Liamnev. I salute the vision, the energy, the ambition, and the teamwork as President of Ireland of this school community, Coluad na scoile seo. And I congratulate you on this fine new building. May everyone who works in it and comes through it enjoy health and happiness. Is gan gachrá agus pánach ní aháin the newest dun páochaí. It will serve as a reminder always to all of you who passed through it, this academy, of what St. Patrick's Academy can, was, and will continue to be, to help students to flourish in the happy, secure, and supportive, considerate space that you have created here in Dungannon. Gaim gachrá míle buíochas per bánach.